worked with that, and that sort of springboarded us into a lot of other different areas because even when you don't have substance abuse issues, everybody has something that's holding them back.
Yes. Yes.
So we've been in a partnership for that for a long time, and I've been blessed to have a wonderful wife and who sees things very differently. We complement each other very much. He's very visual and circular, and I'm very linear. And so we've combined that in a way to help lots of people, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. And, the goal was through working through myself, all the issues and the trauma and the self-destruction, taking that. And once I got on, not say on the other side, but in a process where I was
Yep.
able to share and educate and do all that needed to be done, is to help people where they're not suffering, to help the suffering stop.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where our mission continues to help empower you to live your best audacious life ever. I'm totally thrilled that you're here with us today, and I want to take this moment to thank you for express our gratitude for being a part of this journey and committing some of your day. That commitment and the commitment to personal growth and transformation is what makes this community so special. And as we get into today's episode, imagine life as a vast tapestry woven together with every experience we've encountered. Each thread representing moments of joy, pain, and triumph, as well as a struggle. When we embrace all these threads, we create a vibrant, intricate design that tells a story of who we are. Just like an artist embraces each brushstroke to create a masterpiece, we must acknowledge and accept our experiences as they all contribute to our personal growth. It's in the transformational power of love, acceptance, and understanding ourselves that we can find the strength to overcome adversity and emerge as our true selves. Sharing our personal stories can illuminate the path for others, offering hope in the darkest times and inspiring them to forge ahead. In today's episode, we are joined by the incredible Dr. Dean Sunseri and his wife, HollyKem. They're a dynamic couple who've dedicated their lives to helping others navigate the complexities of mental health, addiction recovery, and personal transformation. Dr. Dean Sunseri is a seasoned life coach and a counselor with an extensive experience in mental health and substance abuse recovery. His wife, HollyKem, is a passionate advocate for personal growth and healing, having spent over 41 years in recovery herself. Together, they've developed a unique coaching methodology that empowers individuals to explore their inner selves and embrace their true potential. Dean and HollyKem's work is incredibly relevant to today's conversation as they emphasize the importance of loving and accepting every facet of ourselves. Their insights into personal transformation and the healing process are invaluable for anyone looking to move beyond their struggles and live that audacious life. So now that we've got you all set, let's turn our conversation over to Dr. Dean and his wife, HollyKem. It is such an honor and privilege to welcome both Dean and HollyKem Sunseri to the Audacious Living Podcast. Thank you both for being here. I appreciate you making the time like this.
You're welcome. Good to be here.
Yes.
Yeah, it's delightful and we're just kind of talking off camera, if you will, or off record, I guess, about the importance of engaging in dialogues that can really help individuals, grow and develop and in some cases recover. And I know there's a lot of, you do a lot of extensive experience sort of mental health and recovery, as well as sort of in the relationship space. And so maybe as a starting point, just to kind of give, an audience a chance to understand a little bit what you and the work that you do, perhaps either or both can sort of fill us in and what you're doing now and what's got you to the point that you're at.
Well, we've been life coaches, counselors. I've also had a stint in doing sports performance stuff. I saw that you've done a lot of work with basketball, professional basketball.
Yeah.
But really our passion has been we've been married 33 years. And we really have felt called to help people become the best of who they're called to be. And so our challenge has been to not only empower people to do that, but also to come up with methods to remove the blocks that keep them from being their best. And so, that's what we've done in so many different avenues at different places. And we both really started with working in the mental health field. We did a lot of work with substance abuse, and obviously with substance abuse, there's this part of a person that wants to be the best who they can be, and there's another
Mhm.
part that's taken over their lives with this
Right.
self-destructive behavior. So we've worked with that, and that sort of springboard us into a lot of other different areas because even when you don't have substance abuse issues, everybody has something that's holding them back.
Yes. Yes.
So we've been in a partnership for that for a long time, and I've been blessed to have a wonderful wife and who sees things very differently. We complement each other very much. He's very visual and circular, and I'm very linear. And so we've combined that in a way to help lots of people, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. And, the goal was through working through myself, all the issues and the trauma and the
Mhm.
self-destruction, taking that. And once I got on, not say on the other side, but in a process where I was
Yep.
able to share and educate and do all that needed to be done, is to help people where they're not suffering, to help the suffering stop and
Right.
be able to see what was really the root of it all. And so through the process that I could see what they wanted me to do and then put that to language, and then Dean and I working together and coming up with a concept that people could use to really get away from people like us, use us when need be, but take something with them away from us and that they could utilize in their lives so they could be successful in all areas.
Holly, when you sort of talked about starting with yourself, it really does. It starts with us
Yeah.
first, right? In terms of
Mhm.
any sort of major success, victory, milestone, whatever, it has to be. We have to be our own starting points, and if we're missing the mark on who we are, to go out in the rest of the world, it's just not going to happen, or at least it's not going to happen effectively where it's sustainable and you're making positive long-term ripple kind of impact. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
so glad to hear you talk about that.
I was kind of fascinated by just the name of your podcast, Audacious. I
Yeah.
was really interested in hearing about that, and how did you come up with that? Because I
I will
think that's
tell you, I will happily share the story. Podcast listeners have probably heard it. If I have 400 episodes, I probably told it 250 times, and we're going to hear 251. And I don't really care if anyone wants to click off because I'm going to tell the story. I think it's a great story. You talked to you referenced my sports background, and I was an executive, a commissioner of a basketball league here in Canada called NBL Canada, and we all, and so first and foremost, basketball has always been a passion of mine. It's a sport that I love deeply, and to this day always do love. And so, in 2020, I'd been the commissioner of the NBL Canada for about 3 years up until that point, and we all know in 2020 the world shut down and everything stopped, and I was going through my own process of understanding. Didn't know what was happening. I knew that there were some days I didn't want to get out of bed. I was feeling lethargic. I was just feeling low energy. It's funny. I remember at one point I was talking about this. I was like, I think I was going through a mild depression. I'm like,
yeah,
no, it wasn't mild depression. It was depression because I
Right.
wasn't right. I was almost minimizing what I was going through, but it was much bigger than I actually gave it credit for. And it was during a chat I was having with just a random friend. I was saying, ever since I lost basketball, I started to feel this way. And that's when it kind of hit me like, oh, now I know what happened. I lost basketball. That's why I feel the way I do. And then I
yeah.
started to say, okay, and I started to think. So I have a daughter on the special on the autism spectrum, and so when we talk about behaviors and how we work to change or adjust, we don't say we get her to stop behaviors. We talk about replacing behaviors. So
Mm,
this is what it was, and what do we want to change it? What do we want to exchange it for? And so I simply said, okay, well, I don't have basketball. What can I replace it with? And so
Um,
podcasting seemed like a natural venue for me because I had done it many times before. And my very first podcast was back in 2008, long before podcasts were a thing. Now everyone's got a business card. They're like, "Hey, I was my podcast." Whereas back then it wasn't so much. And so I knew I wanted to fall back into that because it was I could jump in it relatively quickly. But I also knew I wanted to do something that really resonated with me personally. Like I could talk about basketball, sure, that was it, but that didn't drive me per se the same way this thing on Audacious has came up, and the way that happened. Um, I as I sort of processing and analyzing, trying to figure out, I simply look back at my life and I said, okay, what's mattered to me, what's been important to me, what have I cared about, and one of the common things that got sort of red thread that appeared throughout my entire life to this day is every time I had a success, a major victory, a major accomplishment, I demonstrated some form of audaciousness. It was there,
wow.
right? I
Wow.
may not have been able to label and identify it, but it
Yeah.
absolutely was there. Every time I took a chance, yes, I remember vividly when I was asked to be the commissioner of this basketball league. I had no idea what I was doing. Like I don't know what a commissioner does, but I did it anyways, and I was
Yeah.
able to have that impact and really make a difference in lives of our players, their communities, and so it was really profound, profound mission that I was on, and audacity was there.
Was there.
It never left me. It was always there, and that's sort of kind of what we're landed on. And oftentimes people say, "Oh, hey, great marketing with your name and Audacious." That was just by fluke. It just really was. It was my calling, and the reality is, I think we all end up where we're supposed to be, and we
Mhm.
all end up in the spaces where we're supposed to play in, and that's what got me here. So that's a
That's
long-winded version to your story.
Yeah.
well, it's fascinating because, growing up in the realm of mental health,
Hmm.
it's interesting. A lot of our training in mental health is to bring a person from problem behavior to normality, right? So the spectrum is actually to go from unhealthy to okay,
Hmm.
where there's a whole nother level of how do you go
Mhm.
from normality to excellence, right? And I think
Absolutely.
that's the greenery of audacity. And
Yeah.
we've been fascinated all along with that same thing.
Mhm.
And what we've tried to develop is ways to help bring people not only out of problem to normality but from normality to excellence,
Mhm.
which is
Hmm.
to which has to do with audacity, taking great risk, has to do with listening to our purpose or
Mhm.
our guidance
Right.
and
Right.
really reaching out to that. And that's a whole level that is often neglected in traditional psychotherapy kind of thing. But
Hmm.
that's why I like, the whole realm. I know you have experience as life coaching, but that's the whole realm of life coaching is we want to bring the best of you and to remove the blocks. And that's really been what
Mhm.
we've dedicated the last 30 years on how to help people do that.
Mhm.
Right. Right. Well, in the coaching framework, right, it's not about giving people the tools to be able to do these great things. It's giving them the tools to uncover the things inside of them to do the great things, right? And
Right.
that's where the real work lies. And so the audacious that we speak about, it's not about let me give you this so you can be audacious. It's let me encourage you to find the audaciousness that's inside of you. And that's where the role of maybe HollyKem, I know, that's your space and, you can comment on that. But I really think that's what the starting point is, recognizing that it's in you already.
Right. That's exactly what we teach and exactly what we do is taking, I mean, people come to you because they're in pain, right? Something has happened, something isn't going well, it's not working out, whatever it is. So they come for that. And then you start to help them. And, of course, they just want to skip over what's underneath all that. And they just want to go to, oh, let me be excellent, right? But it's like, no, we have to go through the middle. It's just like with Moses in the Bible, he had to walk through the desert, and it's walking through that desert, through that process where you find the parts of you that have not had the love that it deserved. So once we find those things that need to be loved and we start to love that, we're loving from the inside to the inside. And then that part that you found that is starting to love you, the part that you just want to go away, you start to build on that, and that becomes your strength. That is who you are. And through that, that voice starts to come out of who you really are, what's really in there, what you love, all the things that has been put in you, but got smothered through the wounds, smothered through the trauma. And even though you've been able to function, and maybe even get some high success, but
Right, right,
you're not, there's something missing and you know
right,
it.
right.
So it's like, you got to go back in, and get that and love that so you can come out and be all that you're supposed to be, all that,
Yes,
all the
yes.
gifts, all the creativity, so you can connect to that, so you can come out and be alive.
Yes, yeah. And it's funny that success that you speak of, it can be so misguided, right? Because that
Oh, yeah.
success can be, I'm good. There's nothing wrong with me. How can I be? Look what I have around me. I'm good, right?
Yeah,
But there
right.
is some inner work that either maybe it's been suppressed or ignored or locked in a little cupboard here where no one can see it, that needs to be addressed and looked at. I also love that analogy of going through the middle. I think it's so fitting. And I also appreciate the fact that you refer to it as a process, that
Yes.
process of going through the middle to uncover pieces that you may not have seen, that you haven't tested. So it's like the elastic band. I haven't pulled the elastic band to see how far it can go, so I don't know how far it can go, right? So
Right.
that testing of yourself to be able to say, yes, this is my limits, or here's how far I can go, how much further can I go? And I think that's just a beautiful analogy, so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, one of the processes that we've developed was that we actually divide you up into three parts.
Mhm.
Okay.
So we say one part of you carries all the emotional pain you've experienced in life that's been internalized. And that could be from yesterday, that could be from 20 years ago, that's been internalized. Then we all develop another part of us that is our coping behaviors. And that's how we cope with our emotional pain. The interesting thing about our coping behaviors is that they work for us initially, but over time they begin to work against us.
Right.
So we may call it our defense mechanisms, we may call it all kinds of things. But and then the third part is who we really are. It's who we're called to be. It's our spirit. It's our part of us that's connected with God in some way. And so these three aspects take a life of their own. And so our goal is to help people manage them, to contain our self-destructive or our coping behaviors, to do some healing work with whatever we're carrying internally. And when that process happens, then who we really are emerges and it gets cleared away. And so it's kind of a creative process that we work with, because we actually challenge people to give names to the different aspects of them.
Sure, yeah.
And as they do that, it begins a separation process.
Yeah.
And when a person finds levels of success, but they don't feel they feel empty, oftentimes it's because their coping behaviors have taken a life of their own. Because sometimes coping behaviors can be very negative. If I'm shooting heroin, it looks like, okay, this is pretty bad. I'm shooting heroin.
We got to get rid of that.
But if my coping behavior is a workaholic that is an overachiever that can't stop working,
but it's highly successful.
Or
that misguided
driven.
success again, right? That misguided success we talked about.
Yeah,
right?
misguided success.
Yeah.
Then it's harder to see that as somewhat of a deficit, but it's causing problems in our life. So it's important to understand how sometimes our coping behaviors look really negative and bad, but sometimes it could be the person who's the helper that never can say no.
Right.
Well, it's wonderful to be a helper, but if I never can say no, then I'm losing my identity through trying to please everyone. And so it takes on a life of its own.
Yeah.
Well, if you give something a name, it's going to have its own life. And so when you identify that, hey, that's Ricky over there. And me and Ricky don't get along. Or I love Tammy because she's great. Like it really, they develop personalities and personas and become this whole life. But I do think that's a brilliant way of being able to see, like to make that separation so you can see outside of yourself. And a lot of times I think that's the biggest challenge for individuals is to be able to see outside of who they are, or even who they believe they are.
Yeah.
So when you can kind of go through that process, which again I think is fabulous, it changes your viewpoint and gives you the objective view. And I'm just curious, what what's the reaction from folks when they get to see this person over there they don't like?
Well, what's so great about it is that, we celebrate the part they don't like because we look at it, of course they don't like it because it's caused, much havoc, right?
Sure.
But it's like I tell them, you have two children, okay? And one is a bad teenager. We don't throw them out. We don't say, we don't love you anymore. Get out of here. And then we have this crying little whiny child. We don't go, "Yeah, just take her. I don't want her anymore." Is
Right.
that we learn to love these parts, but we make it's just a part of us. It's just like if your arm slapping people, you don't want your arm slapping people, right? No, you got to tell your arm no, right? So it's like we
Right.
have this part of us that wants to do unhealthy things, right? So
Yes.
it's like, no, you can't do it. Now, the goal for us is to give it a voice, but not give it any power. So something
Mm.
happens to me, I feel hurt. For myself, I don't just feel the hurt, I hear the voice, right? It wants to react, right? But what I do now is it can tell me what it wants to do. And I say, thanks for sharing. And then I go to
Yeah.
the next part and say, what's
Move
going
along.
on? And
Move along
yeah,
now, right? Thanks
right,
for
right.
sharing. Move
And it's
along.
like, oh, you hurt my feelings. Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, great. And then as an adult woman, it's like, how am I going to handle this? I may say something, I may not. I may let it just roll off my back. But it's like in that process, when they are able to identify it, because let me go back for a second. What happens is when they come and we start doing the work, their fear is that is who I really am. Like they'll say, if you really knew me, HollyKem, you wouldn't like me. And I'm thinking internally, I see you and you're awesome. But what
Mhm.
they're talking about is that part of them that is self-destructive. And they think that's who they really are because they're trying to manage it, hide it, get rid of it, but it takes over. And it's like, no, that's not who you really are. That's just a part of you that's trying to protect you from ever being hurt again.
Mhm.
However, it has also hurt you. So when we see that and we start to love that, because its purpose is to help stop the pain. Its purpose is not to cause more havoc. However, it thinks more like a teenager, which if a teenager is running your life, it's not going to be healthy because it wants more of everything, right? I want more of this, more of that, right? So in that, we just learn to hear it, love it, and understand it. And then we learn to feel it, love it, and understand the part of us that is really the engine that's moving that part of us. So when we do that and we name them and claim them, because I mean, you can spend, 50, 100,000 in
Yep.
therapy so you can
Yep.
learn to be like this. Hi, I'm HollyKem. And sometimes I'm very anxious and overwhelmed and insecure. But there's a part of me that is, wants to, self-destruct and use drugs. And today I don't do that anymore because I've been sober for 41 years. Okay. But you know what? I can give you a whole simpler way that you can just start categorizing this stuff and be able to really quickly go for it so then you can take your power
There
back.
was early in our relationship,
Mhm.
HollyKem was working two jobs and
Mhm.
basically MIA, And so Mr. Healthy was like, okay, if you continue working, this is not going to work. You need to take time off. And so I was missing her and stuff. So I remember distinctly one Friday she came home and she said, I took off all day today. I took all day Friday, Saturday. I mean, Saturday, Sunday. We're going to spend the whole weekend together.
Mhm.
So at that moment, if I had to give words to what was happening in the three levels, the wounded part was like, oh my God, you're going to be smothered the entire weekend. You're not going to be able to do anything on your own. My coping behavior was like, lie to her and tell her you have a golf game on Saturday. And true self, who I really am, is like, I'm excited I get to spend
Eh,
time with my wife.
right.
Now, if I don't have, so I'm asking her to take time off, and now I'm going to lie to her and tell her I need space. I mean, all that's going on, but that's just an example of what we all experience at times is that we have these different divergent
Yes.
thought
Yes.
processes, and I'm requesting her to take off, and I'm ready to lie to her, kind of thing. So that's what we help you
Yeah,
understand is like where are these different parts coming from and how to
right.
manage that so I can have a good weekend with my wife and not lie to her about a golf game.
Got you. So I just want to confirm that is what happened. You did not lie, right?
Exactly.
This is exactly what
Okay, shoot.
happened.
Good. That would have messed up the story if you did. I mean, that's great. I'm glad.
Well, there's
But
unfortunately there's many examples of that that we had to learn to work through, you know?
that's
Right.
right. But I do like that illustration because it really shows us, there's three different potential pathways that we can go down, and when you sort of take yourself outside and you can look at that, it actually, and I mean I'm speculating here a bit, but I think it actually there's some logic that comes in place that goes, well, why would I do that? So why would I tell my wife I wanted to spend time and lie about, like, it doesn't, it just starts not to make sense. And oftentimes I think where we get ourselves into trouble, and I'll put my hand up too as an individual, we get ourselves into trouble is we make decisions that are sometimes emotionally based and lack the logic and the reason, and it doesn't make sense. And on the other side, you're going, why the heck did I do that? And like, I don't know, right? And so in that same token, like, why would I lie about golf tournament when I wanted her to do this, right? So it's removing some of the emotion from that and being more logical. I know it's not an easy thing to do, to step back and analyze. You can't always do that in every single scenario, but understanding that a bit, I think, can really help us make better decisions overall, I believe.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and the part of, the wounded part of us has no sense of time and thinks in symbols. So that is like the hugest key, is that part of me that has taken let's just say I lost my grandmother, okay, which is the most precious thing in my life, okay, the person that saw me and loved me in my life. So through that, everybody that loved my grandmother had that same loss, right? So let's just say that loss deserved, a month of true love and attention. But
Yes.
everybody needs a month of that love and attention. Nobody has a month to give each one, right?
Right.
So even though I'm healthy and I'm grieving, there's some of that pain from the loss of my grandmother that gets stuffed in that wounded bucket, right? Because I have to continue to function. Right? Healthy or unhealthy. I got to move on. So through our lives, we have these rocks that get put in this bucket because there's no way, even if I come from the healthiest family, that can love every wound that deserves that much love per wound. So we end up with this bucket full of wounds. Okay. Then we move on through life and then we start to protect ourselves because those wounds and that bucket gets really heavy.
Yes.
When that happens, then this part of me, my protective part of me, starts to make decisions. So let's say I'm just like, now I'm, more healthy. I worked on myself. I know this. Even though I know this, when something can happen and could be, triggering, painful, it triggers the old wounds. So I'm not just dealing with, so like, let's say my dad dies. I'm not just dealing with what my dad's death. I'm also dealing with all of the rocks that didn't get enough love. So now I'm feeling his death plus all of these. So the intensity of the pain is more. So if I don't understand that, then all of a sudden my protector comes out and tries to make it go away. So that's when we go to lie. That's when we overdrink. That's when we do something that is trying not only to sedate what's happening, but to sedate this emotional push that it doesn't make sense. Like I should be crying like a 10, but I'm crying like a 50. It's like, why am I crying like a 50? I don't even know that person that well that I could be my best friend's father died and I'm crying like a 50. It's like I'm crying worse than the family because all of this other stuff is in here. So it's like when you learn, what we teach is how to separate that. So I understand those rocks that need a lot of love through. And for me, what I teach is that, if it takes to the day I die and cross over, where they say there's no more pain, right? Is that then if it takes the rest of my life on this earth to love those wounds, I'm going to be like the kitty cat. I'm going to love it. Instead of being like, stop, get away. I'm going to sedate it. I'm going to make it go away and pretend it's not there. I'm not doing that anymore because that caused me to be a drug addict and almost go to prison. No, we're gonna love this. We're gonna love it. We're gonna love what's in front, and we're gonna love the old, in a healthy way.
The word acceptance immediately comes to mind.
Yes.
And that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a real connection between the capacity, the things that we are able to love in ourselves, the difficult things, it builds a capacity to love the same thing in other people.
Yes.
And the opposite is true too. The things that we're not able to love.
Dean, you got to say that again, Dean. That was powerful. I'm sorry, that was really. You got to say that again. That was powerful.
Yeah, it builds capacity. The things that we learn to love in ourselves
Yeah.
builds the capacity to be able to love those very same things in another person. But the things that we're not able to love or that we deny in ourselves, we will shut down other people when they begin to express that. So if I have lots of grief about losing a loved one that I've never dealt with, and
Yeah.
you're my friend and you lose a loved one, that's going to bring all that up.
Right.
So in a way to stop it, I need to shut you down.
Yeah. Right.
And so, but if I've been taught how to embrace that, work with it, love that part, and you lose someone that you love, I'm able to be there with you and to walk you through the process. So what's so important for people to understand, and we're believers in the fact that our greatest secrets and our greatest hurts are meant to become our greatest treasures. And so what I mean by that is those very places that we are most ashamed about, the places that we've been hurt deeply about, they're meant to go through the healing gauntlet so that it becomes life to give to other people. So, for example, HollyKem, traveled through the realm of recovery from addiction and really walked that dark road into light. And all of a sudden, that becomes her treasure where she's helped thousands of people do the same thing. So there's a redemptive process to our hurts. And if we don't let it go through that redemptive process, then it doesn't become a source of life to other people. Right. And oftentimes our purpose is rooted in some of those very places.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I am such a big proponent of embracing all of our experiences, whether they're good or they're perceived bad. All of them serve a purpose. They feed into who we are, as you mentioned. They have the ability to impact others in profound ways. How many times, for example, you're going through something, and you're thinking, no one on the planet has any idea what this feels like, what I'm going through, the impact it's having on me, and someone comes along and goes, "Oh yeah, I did that once, and here's what you do." Like, that is powerful, powerful stuff. Yes. But that person isn't able to give me that matter of fact suggestion, like it's no big deal, unless they themselves have gone through the experience, recognize what they could have done better if it didn't work out, or recognize what they did well if it did work out, and be able to keep those lessons and then impart them to someone else. I heard an expression once, one person's, autobiography is another person's blueprint, right? And there's so much sort of power in that we have our experiences, we go through them, and that's why the whole aspect of sharing, I'm such a big fan of. Like, share, obviously within reason, and what you're comfortable with, and I mean, absolutely. But when you look at the profound impacts of what sharing can have and what it can do to others, it's just an amazing way to give back to others. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah, because it gives hope. It shows you that, it's a hope dealer. It's like being able to really see that, as bad as it is, that there's another human being that found the way through, there's a way out. There's light on the other side. You may not be able to see the light, but somebody found the light, and you may choose to do it a different way, but just know that there's a light. And when you have someone that, like myself, has been sober for 41 years, that, was a junkie, and now I have this beautiful life. I was married before, divorced, and now I have this beautiful marriage for 33 years. It's like being able to, that there's someone out there that says, I did it, you can do it.
Yeah.
It's frightening, it's scary, but that's what courage is
audaciousness.
Walking. Yeah, it's audaciousness. Walking with it, going with the fear, not letting the fear paralyze you, because that's what fear does. It paralyzes us.
Yes, it does. Yes.
It paralyzes us. And so knowing that, no, I'm going to step up and I'm going to walk no matter I'm afraid.
And the question becomes, how do you deal with the wound? I mean, how do you deal with fear? Is oftentimes it's connected to the wound. Like, I had a vivid example. I had a guy who advanced in his career. He was a technician, and he was really brilliant. And he got to the point where he needed to do training and train other people
Yep.
to do the light craft. And so he went to his first training that he was supposed to facilitate, and he froze and he couldn't speak. He was very embarrassed. It was a horrible. And he came to me, he said, look, I have this opportunity to advance my career, but I can't speak in front of people. Can you help me? I said, well, let's see. And so I was just asking him questions about that. And I said, have you ever gotten in front of people and it was difficult? No. And he said, well, one time when I was in, I think it was like fifth grade, I was dyslexic and I didn't know it. And I was asked to read in front of my class, and I started to read, and I was messing up the words, and my classmates and the teacher were laughing, and it was, and then he went on to something else, and I said, wait, go back here. And so I had him just tell me the story, and I said, what was the symbol, right? No sense of time, thinking symbolically. The symbol was, I'm getting up in front of my peers and doing a presentation. And all the fear and humiliation and terror that he experienced 20 years before, which he wasn't even aware of, came up when he got in front of his peers to do a presentation. And he was hit by this emotional bullet that just took over. And so we were able to work through it. And once he made the connection, like, okay, this is not my fifth grade class, we worked through it, and he was able to go on and do presentations. It did fine. But he didn't understand it. He just felt it. And we just needed to help him understand what was the no sense of time and what was the trigger. Now that happens to us all in relationships. It happens to us professionally. And so until we understand the connection between wounding and the fears that result from that, we can't work through it, and we stay stuck.
Right.
And so that's what we do is, like, people say, well, why do you go in the past? We don't go in the past for the sake of the past. We go in the past if it's providing a block from you to become the best of who you are today. And if we can work through it like we did with this man, he went on and had a great speaking career in his company because he worked through the wound.
Wonderful. Working through the wounds. Working through the wounds. I think it's a really nice. I would not dare leave this conversation unless we touched on adversity, but not just adversity, but the resilience connected to that, because the two are hand in hand. They really, really are. So like, one of the analogies I oftentimes use is like, life is like a pathway. We're all on our own audacious path, right? Walking along, going on our individual journey. It is our individual journey. Like, what one person, we're not going to see the same obstacles or whatever. The on this pathway, there's a boulder, right? And simply, our job is to get up, over, around, through to the other side of this boulder, because on the other side of that is kind of where the greatness lies, right? Or the things that are that audacious life that we're after. That's where it is. But that obstacle that's in front of us right now, we need to get past that. And so that's the adversity, the resilience, which is bouncing back from setbacks, to be able to try again, to not quit. Perseverance is another great word that comes to mind for me. And so I just wanted to sort of throw that out there with respect to just the powerful impact of moving through adversity.
Yeah,
definitely. Well, and two is when you think about, when we all think about our lives, and unless there is a big thorn in your side that's causing pain, we can be very complacent, versus realizing, really trying to get people to see, trigger yourself. When you get triggered, go for it. It's an opportunity to move to the next level, versus being like, I need to avoid all of this, because that's what people usually do. They get triggered and they avoid it, versus going, no, this is an opportunity for me to love myself so I can get past that boulder, so I can keep going, instead of, backing up and walling myself off.
Right,
It's
right.
really just okay, what is it? What is this? Why is this getting me? Why is this bothering me? Why am I crying at this part of the movie? It's like the first 15 seconds you cry in a movie, that's for the person on the screen. Anything else is yours. It's like, why am I crying? Why am I identifying with this pain?
Right.
What's going on? So it's like in that, being able to really take those boulders and be able to really be gentle with myself and see, okay, if I just give it a little tender loving care, I'm going to get on the other side. And, one of the things that Dean had said, when we talk about forgiveness is always a big topic, right? Because that's a big boulder, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
We take those,
Especially forgiveness ourselves.
oh, that's huge. That is so huge. And that was exactly what I was going to say, is that I can never forgive another person if there's something in my own life I haven't forgiven myself for.
Yeah.
So every time I forgive myself for something that, I wish I wouldn't have done, I feel guilty about, then when someone's in front of me and has had the same issue, I can forgive them. And then it's freedom for both of us. So forgiveness of self is number one, just like working on yourself is number one.
The part of this that is when we talk about what we do for ourselves, the next natural piece is then the relationships that we have with others, right? So this is so now we're moving that realm of like impacting the world kind of a thing, right? Because now we're managing what we've forgiven ourselves, we've shown ourselves, we show ourselves grace and compassion and mercy and all these things. Now we extend that to others. And that extends, so now we're talking about like life-changing, earth-changing type of stuff now, which really that's where the true power lies, what it can do for other people.
Exactly. And there's a lot of people, let's say they're a missionary and they want to go to whatever country and help, and it's like, but at home their home's a mess,
right?
And it's like, no, you want to fix this first. And that way you go over there, you're bringing all that with you, but then you're not longing to fix them because you want to do this first. You want to love this first. Then you have something to give and change the world. Exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
And you can see it better.
Well, there is so much power in the realm of forgiveness. Most people think, I don't forgive because I become a doormat, and what I'm saying is what the other person did is okay, which is not the case.
Right.
I remember a friend of mine who actually we were talking about Nelson Mandela, and he said, I actually had dinner with Nelson Mandela. I said, what do you mean? I said, tell me about it. And so he said that he had dinner with him. He was a guy, grew up in the United States, and wonderful, wonderful guy. And he had the opportunity to do that. And he said, Mandela really messed me up. He said it in a different term that I'm not going to say over the podcast, but really screwed me up. I said, what do you mean? He said, I had dinner with this guy, and all the things that he had experienced, 20 years persecution, all this, he said, the man had not 1 ounce of bitterness.
Wow.
I know.
And he said, that messed me up. He said, I grew up, African-American in the 60s in the United States. I was, had experienced certain injustices, was still really angry about that. And here I met Mandela, and he had not 1 ounce of bitterness. He said, I was determined to come back and do the same. And I was reflecting on that because it was so powerful, because he was able to get to a place of forgiveness in himself and with others and the wrongs that were done. And yet the power of that not only reconciled him, but reconciled the country.
Yeah.
It made impact in the world, and had a tremendous impact on this man who just spent a few hours with him for dinner and changed his life. And it was just one man working through that issue of forgiveness. And, it really stuck with me ever since then. I realized that forgiveness is such is like the roadway to freedom.
Yes.
It's so to reconciliation and freedom. And like you said, when it happens inside of a person, it starts impacting family, it starts impacting cities, it can impact nations, it can, and in Mandela's case, it can impact the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is, and even when you look at Nelson Mandela, I think that's a beautiful illustration. Um, it wasn't as if it was like sometimes when we are acting just naturally doing what we naturally are born to do, and we're not thinking about it. So he wasn't thinking, well, I'll demonstrate forgiveness and everyone else will be impacted. I'm just naturally being. And when you can do that, and then have the impact that we talked about, oh my gosh, that's it's a wonderful thing, right? And so I love that. I've loved this conversation, guys. Man, I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to connect this way. You have a book, right? That you've got. Tell me about it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Is it-
we have a book called A Roadmap to the Soul, which is basically a process that we walk you through with the three different parts
Yep.
and how to get to a place of freedom and living from your true self. And yeah, we originally wrote it. I was in school studying for therapy and counseling, and HollyKem was doing the work, and she was having such great results. And so she's blessed with the gift of dyslexia.
Yes.
And so she doesn't read well, but she sees things. And she saw when she worked with people, I asked her, she said she would see three different parts of a person: their wounded self, their angry self, their true self, who they really are. So we put a language to that and developed a whole process, and that's what we have in our book. And so we have three things that we offer people. We have a free YouTube channel that
Mhm.
hundreds and hundreds of videos. We have the book. We also have a online coaching program, which is like a 3 or 4 month process to where we walk people through integrating this in their lives and
Yep.
having great freedom.
Wonderful. Guys, thank you for this. Like I said, I'm just so honored to have an opportunity to share with you in this fashion. And oftentimes, at the end of these dialogues or conversations, I sort of think about kind of what my takeaway is. And sometimes I think I'm robbing the world because I get to talk to people and gain so much for myself. And so I think about the takeaways and even these three personas that you identified. I think that's just a wonderful, wonderful way of us being honest with ourselves, one, right? And
Yes.
also having that objective viewpoint to be able to pinpoint, identify the areas that we can do some work or we need some growth or maybe we're happy with. Like I think I think it's also important in all that we're talking about that we do identify that things that we like about ourselves and happy parts. It's really easy to go, well, we're healing. I don't like this. I don't like that. But there are things that we do like about ourselves that are good that we want to keep, right? So this exercise gives us an opportunity to do all three, right?
All three. That's right.
All
It's
three.
a deep dive. It's definitely a deep dive. I tell
Exactly.
people it's not for the weak and faint.
No, it is absolutely not. For our listeners that wanted to connect with you or learn more about your work or your book, where can we send them?
They can go to ihaveavoice.com, which is our website, or our YouTube channel is I Have a Voice, also Dean and HollyKem Sunseri.
Mhm.
Very cool. Listen, guys, this has been great. I really appreciate the time. Fabulous chat, fabulous insights. Congratulations on the work that you're doing together. I think that's also a beautiful thing that you can enjoy. You can be a part of each other's journey as a couple. That's a wonderful thing too. So thank you for being here and all the best.
Oh,
Thank you so much. And keep up the great work. I love the name of your podcast. I think it's such a great service for people. So you keep up the great work
Yes.
also.
I promise you I will. Thank you. Back we are here on the podcast, and it was an absolute delight to be joined by Dr. Dean and HollyKem. They were the delightful couple and had so much to share. During our conversation, they offered some profound insights. If you think about it, they said our greatest secrets and our greatest hurts are meant to become our greatest treasures, which is just a wonderful quote. This notion encapsulates the essence of personal growth. Each struggle we face, each wound we carry is not just a burden, but an opportunity for healing and transformation. By confronting our past and nurturing the parts of ourselves that have been neglected, we can unlock a reservoir of strength and resilience. As we learn to love and accept others wholeheartedly, we become equipped to extend that love and understanding to others. And that fosters deep connections in a more compassionate world. I'd encourage you to connect with Dr. Deem and his wife HollyKem directly. Their expertise and wisdom are really inspiring, and you can find their contact details in the show notes below. And they're offering a special online coaching program, actually, that's designed to guide you through the process of self-discovery and healing. And again, those details are in the show notes below. I want to thank you for joining us on another episode of the Audacious Living Podcast. If you've enjoyed our conversation and found value in the insights shared today, please like, follow, subscribe, or share if you haven't already done so, because that's how we continue to grow our community. Together, we can inspire more individuals to embrace their audacious lives. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.